Scott Boda with Steeda Autosports here. Today we're going to install a set of our linear drag springs and our starter stop the hop kit. Thankfully we got our friends Jared and Christy from LethalPerformance to come up here with their brand new Grabber Blue S650. One of the most important things with any automobile is a proper foundation. Now Ford in 2015 gave us a factory-produced IRS, a Mustang that handled really good and rode great right out of the box. The problem is they had to cater this car to the masses, which meant soft rubber bushings and some deflection. That way when you're going over bumps or speed bumps, you got a really nice soft ride. Well, what we decided to do when that car first came out was go ahead and stick a GoPro underneath it and see exactly what was going on with this Ford new IRS in the back. What we found was that the entire subframe was moving and deflecting up and down over a ½ an inch. So we put our heads together and we came out with our Steeda Stop the Hop kit. Now, what's wheel hop? How does it affect you? Well, it doesn't matter whether you're daily driving your car or if you like drag racing, autocrossing, or like I said, just going to Cars and Coffee. There's gonna come a point in time where you're gonna mash that loud pedal and you're gonna want those rear tires to hook and for you to get traction and ultimately accelerate forward. If you got wheel hop, that's not really taking place. So that's when we developed our Steeda Stop the Hop package. What this does is it's going to fill the voids in the factory bushings of your rear subframe or cradle. So you have 4 mounting points, 2 in the front, 2 in the rear. And you've got voids in these factory bushings. Now what that does is allow for a nice, soft, factory Cadillac-like type ride. But any kind of performance you add to the car, and it's going to suffer because of the deflection of that rear subframe. So this Steeda rear subframe bushing support kit is going to do exactly that. It's going to go ahead and fill the voids in your factory rear subframe. Now that fits everything from 2015 all the way up to the current 2024. If you got a GT 500 or GT 350, we've got a unique kit designed just for you as well. The beauty of this, no increased NVH whatsoever. You simply add this to your car and you get nothing but smiles. Your rear end's gonna feel more planted in the back. You're gonna get still a factory style ride, but you're gonna get much better traction and reduced wheel hop with these components. Then those 4 bolts we just talked about. That's how much space between those 4 bolts and your rear subframe bushing tube. So when these cars are going down the assembly line, they're just throwing these rear subframes in. Then at the end of the job, the alignment guy is gonna tow and go it and get it pretty close within spec and you're on your way. But your subframe is never truly squared to your chassis. That's where our Steeda 4-piece alignment dowel kit comes in. It's going to square that rear subframe with your chassis. That way you know that it is straight and center and you can get your alignment specs dialed in perfectly on each side. Once again, simple install, no increase in NVH whatsoever. And that's noise, vibration, and harshness. Talking about something that's even simpler, no alignment required, no nothing, our Steeda IRS braces. This is one of the finishing touches with our starter stop the hop kit on the back of these S650 Mustangs. We started welding in different bars, different pieces on the subframe, trying to control its movement even better once you start adding power adders like a Whipple supercharger or things like that. What we did was come up with this unique design that bolts into factory mounting locations. So no drilling, no tapping, no welding. Simply bolt these things on and you end up with additional performance right out of the box. What it's going to do is it's going to tie in to 2 front mounting points located in front of the rear axle. It's then going to support the factory front subframe bracket. So you don't even need to remove the factory bracket, simply bolt this in, it's gonna make it more sturdy right away. Then in the rear, it's going to mount in a really crucial point, which is the lower control arm mounting point area. What we found working with John Uris and the guys out there at Hellion Turbo with his wife Melissa early on in testing their twin turbo kit for this S550 that as you gain traction, the wheels will actually move forward. Now we've got a spherical bearing that takes care of the majority of that problem, but we also want to support that area as well. That's where this IRS brace really shines, is tying together the factory frame rail, your rear subframe mount, and your lower control arm mount, which quite frankly is where all that energy is transferring to move your Mustang forward. So awesome part, it's patented. We simply cannot keep these units on the shelf. My personal opinion, it is absolutely the best things you can add to your S550 or S650 Mustang for improved traction that doesn't break the bank. Simple, easy install, and it works absolutely every single time. Now, what about these lowering springs? Well, these are our Steeda drag springs. What they're gonna do is not slam the Mustang. Let's face it, typically when you're drag racing, you're gonna start off with a 28-inch tall tire. Some of the higher horsepower guys with these S550s and 650s are using a 29.4-inch tall tire. That's a really tall tire, so you don't wanna slam the car. This lowers it about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch in the rear. It's a linear spring, which means it's gonna give you a nice steady spring rate through its entire motion, therefore helping drive your rear tire into the ground, while the front spring will allow for a nice amount of weight transfer to make sure you've got as much weight on those back tires as possible to make sure you're getting the most traction as possible. You're looking at a spring rate of 800 in the rear and 150 in the front to allow you to get the optimum weight transfer to get the weight on those rear tires, which is only gonna help increase traction. The beauty of the drag kit is, like I said, it doesn't slam your car, still gives you a much better look from the factory, and it really rides great. We're not talking about a competition spring, which might ride really rough or stiffer on the street. These are gonna give you an OEM-like ride, and when you head out to the drag strip, they're gonna really perform and give you those results you're looking for. Not only does this package not break the bank, but it also, like I said, no increase in NVH whatsoever. But you truly are going to feel a difference once you bolt it on. It's like having a Fox body with a plastic clutch quadrant. You can't really feel the clutch pedal, you can't enjoy the car. Same thing, you got that factory IRS, if it's moving around on you, no matter whether you're just going to Cars and Coffee, hitting some high-speed turns, you're going drag racing, you're not gonna truly enjoy your Mustang. Steeda Stop the Hop Starter Kit is absolutely one of the first things you should do for your 15 and current Mustang, because like I said, it'll make a huge difference and you're truly gonna enjoy your car a lot more. So if you're looking to lower your Mustang, whether it be with the drag springs, maybe the dual rates, or my favorite, the Steeda Progressives, you're gonna need to get in alignment anyway. Absolute perfect time to go ahead and install our starter stop the hop kit, because with these two components here, you are gonna be unbolting that rear subframe, and we do suggest that you get in alignment afterwards. So throw these parts in while you're at it, and I'm telling you, you won't be able to recognize your Mustang because it makes that much of an improvement with everyday driving. To show you how easy it is to install these, let's go show you how it's done on LethalPerformance's brand new S650. Here are the tools required for the job. First, get the vehicle up in the air and remove the wheels. Starting up front, remove the 2 bolts holding the front brake caliper. Using a bungee cord or a hanger, hold the caliper up so there's no tension on the brake lines. Remove the brake rotor. Now, with a wrench and a socket, you can disconnect the end link from the strut. Pull the clips holding the lines to the strut off. Go ahead and remove the 2 nuts holding the strut to the knuckle. The bolts are splined, so they'll need to be hammered out. Instead of hammering the bolt, simply thread back on the nut and then hammer the bolt out so you don't damage any threads. Up top, the 3 strut nuts can now be removed. And the strut can now be pulled out. Compress the spring on the strut. Remove the nut holding the top of the strut. Do not use an impact because it can damage your strut. Now you can pull the factory spring out. And underneath the dust cover, remove the factory bump stop. This needs to be trimmed. Cut the narrow end off as shown, and then reinstall them into place. Get the drag spring into place properly on the spring seat. Make sure the spring is orientated correctly with the proper opening facing up. Then place a Steeda camber plate over the strut and into position. Compress the spring down. Using 2 wrenches, tighten down the strut top. Do not use an impact as this will cause damage to the strut. Then use a strut socket tool to torque the front strut to 75 foot-pounds. Place the strut back into the vehicle and get a washer and nut onto the 3 bolts. This will help hold the assembly in place. Then tighten them all down. Those would get tightened to 35 foot-pounds. Back in the wheel well, get the 2 strut bolts back through the knuckle. You're going to have to use a hammer to put the splines back into place. Then the 2 nuts can be tightened down. Torque to 184 foot-pounds. Now the end link can be reconnected to the strut. Make sure you use a dab of red Loctite when connecting your end links back to the strut. Torque to 85 foot-pounds. Reinstall the brake rotor and caliper. Moving to the rear driver's side, there are 2 bolts holding the rear subframe bracket to the chassis, as well as the bracket holding the brake line. The 2 bolts that hold the shock mount up top can now be removed. As well as the 2 holding the shock to the lower control arm. The front bolt holding the rear subframe can come out completely, as well as the one in the rear on the same side. A pry bar can be used to get the factory spring out. Then get your Steeda spring into place. It should be easier as it is shorter in overall height. Make sure the pigtail properly aligns in the control arm. Use a jack to support the subframe and lift it back into place. Remove the nut from the factory rear shock. You're going to remove the boot, which contains the factory bump stop. Pull the dust cover off and remove it. Once again, the narrow end will need to be shortened as shown. Install the bump stop and then put the dust cover on. Tighten the strut and get the cap back on. Install the bolts into the bottom of the shock and the bolts up top, and tighten these down to factory specs. To install the subframe bushing support kit, follow the illustration to the side. The thick spacer is going to go in the top front, while the thin spacer is going to go in the top rear. The other 2 components showed will fill the voids in the bottom of the bushing. Grease the rear lower bushing support as it makes it much easier to install. The grooved edge will face up and the side with the bolt opening will face outward or to the side of the vehicle. It's a tight fit, but some pliers can be used to get it around the bushing. The outside piece can now slide into place. Once you get the bolts threaded into place, the 2 pieces will come together. Now to install the alignment kit, the short spacer is going to go in the front position, while the tall spacer is going to go in the rear position. This will help square up your rear subframe. Once you install the rear dowel in the subframe, the bolt can follow. Go ahead and tighten them both down, as well as the two smaller bolts up front holding that factory subframe support bracket. Torque the subframe bolts to 129 foot-pounds of torque. Further forward, remove this bolt from the body of the car. Some cars may be equipped with it, some cars will not. Insert the threaded plate into the subframe of the vehicle next to the toe link. Now we're going to install our Steeda IRS braces. Grab the IRS brace and get it into place. Start by threading the center 10mm bolt first, then move to the front and start those in by hand as well. Do not tighten anything. Move to the rear and install the two 12mm bolts. One's longer and one is shorter. The longer one goes in the rearmost position. Now you can tighten everything down fully. After you're done with one side, the process can be repeated on the other side. And now your installation is complete. So just got done with the install. As you can see, lowered it 3/4 of an inch all the way around. Pretty simple installation. You're gonna want an alignment afterwards, but they're expecting some big horsepower, courtesy of Whipple superchargers on this car. Drag springs were a perfect fit. Throw in the starter, stop the hop kit, and you got a good foundation to make sure you get rid of that wheel hop in the back of your S650 Mustang. So if you like what you saw, follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, not only can you get these products at Steeda.com, go ahead and visit our friends at LethalPerformance.com. They've got them in stock in South Florida. And remember the most important thing at the end of the day, Steeda, where speed matters.